Almost 100 years ago, South Korea's top hunter, Min Si-woo, was mysteriously transported to a monster-infested realm right after he and his disciples defeated the Demon King on Earth. The only way for him to return to Earth is by defeating a dragon-like monster that contains a core inside its body, a core that could help him to teleport back to his home planet. After battling for years, Si-woo finally takes down the monster, which is all thanks to his legendary healing abilities, and acquires the core for himself. As soon as he gulps the stone down, he is ready to sail back to Earth, ready to reunite with his disciples and little brother. In the next moment, he opens his eyes in a lush green forest. He didn't come back alone. There's this mysterious being occupying him, which lives inside his guts, and its name is Frey. He gets back on his feet, looking around, but he doesn't recognize this place at first glance, which of course surprises Frey. I mean, how does this dude not recognize his own home? That's just weird. But Si-woo reminds his companion that Earth's landscapes vary depending on the location. He then focuses on the flow of The first time he was sent from Earth to another world 100 years ago, his stats plummeted. And now, it seems like the same story. Right now, he only has 20% of his former power, which is beyond frustrating. Even Frey is pissed. He wants Si-woo to recover as soon as possible, otherwise he won't be able to use his awesome skills. But Si-woo is just as annoyed because regaining his lost strength is going to take at least a decade. Hearing this, Frey straight up wants to cancel their contract. With Si-woo's current pathetic mana, he's basically useless to him. As they bicker back and forth, the scene cuts to a woman panting heavily as she runs for her life, chased by an orc. She's completely lost track of her teammates and has no clue what to do. More importantly, she has yet to figure out why in the hell there's an orc this early in the dungeon. She suddenly stumbles over her feet and trips. But before the orc can rip her apart, my guy Si-woo rocks that bastard with a single punch. And the best part is that he doesn't even bother looking in the orc's direction. That's how insignificant the threat is to him. Si-woo turns to the girl, wanting her to confirm whether the planet they're currently on is Earth. The already spazzed out girl manages to give a positive response. So he follows up with another question, asking if this is Korea and what year it is. Once again, the girl confirms with a yes and further clarifies that it's the year 2037. The mention of 2037 gets our boy thinking. He remembers that when he got sucked into that other dimension, it was 2027. If he is thinking right, then 100 years in the demon realm was only 10 years on Earth. Si-woo then proceeds to ask the name of the current president. The girl responds, saying it's Choi Dae-soo. This leaves Si-woo absolutely stunned, because as it turns out, he knows this guy. And judging by his expression, he doesn't seem to remember President Choi Dae-soo in good terms. As he mumbles all sorts of weird stuff under his breath, the girl starts wondering if this nutcase is just role-playing as a regressor. Si-woo then turns to her with another question. Since the flow of mana here feels off, he wants to confirm if they are inside a gate. The girl quickly affirms this, and further elaborates that they're inside the tutorial tower. Si-woo has never heard of this tutorial tower concept, so the girl proceeds to spill all the details. The tower appeared a few years ago, acting as a gateway for hunters. If you clear it, you awaken your abilities and gain skills. And the higher your awakening rank, the better your privileges, like getting recruited by the most powerful guilds. So naturally, everyone is rushing to clear the tower as soon as possible. Si-woo clearly remembers that back in his day, the Awakened just got their powers without all this extra crap. From what he understands, all he has to do is clear the tower to get out of here. So he asks her how long that usually takes. The girl explains that on average it takes about 8 weeks, but if you're skilled enough, you can clear it in at least 6 weeks. The current record holder is a second-generation genius hunter, Ryu Ji-won, who cleared it in just 3 weeks. But my guy is not that amazed or surprised. They suddenly sense the presence of something huge nearby, and soon enough, a giant mutated tiger appears, a creature known as the troll tiger. While the girl panics at the sight of this terrifying beast, Si-woo is still lost in thought, contemplating the record holder. To him, clearing the tower in 3 weeks isn't impressive at all, it's far too long. But since his own abilities have been nerfed, he's not sure if he can do it any faster either. Meanwhile, the tiger is swishing its tongue around its lips, ready to make a snack out of the duo. Eventually, the tiger lunges at them. But Si-woo is still deep in contemplation, thinking about how he'll approach the trial tower. Not wanting his train of thought to be interrupted, he simply punches the giant cat without even moving or looking back at the threat. And that one punch literally breaks the creature's jaw. Finally, Si-woo comes to terms with himself and decides that 5 days should be more than enough to clear the tower. 5 days flow by and the scene then transitions to Min Se-jun, the Empire Guildmaster. His assistant reports that someone just exited the tutorial tower. Hearing this, Se-jun realizes that it's only been 8 weeks since the trial started, so clearing the tower in that time isn't bad at all. But then, the assistant reveals something shocking. The person who cleared the tower wasn't on the original entry list. There's no record of their batch, and no record of them entering the tower. And now, this mystery person is causing quite a commotion outside. When the assistant shows Sejun who the person is, his eyes widen in shock, because the face looks oddly familiar. He recognizes him as Hyung, his big brother who had disappeared 10 years ago. Now let's shift back to Siwoo and the girl accompanying him. The lady is absolutely boggled. She has yet to figure out how on earth did this guy clear the tutorial tower in just 5 days. But the way my guy has smashed this last remaining monster, it's clear how. The system promptly announces that the tutorial is complete, but when it tries to calculate Siwoo's skills and stats, it utterly fails. The gate opens, Siwoo is ready to walk out in order to start the next chapter of his life. Outside the tutorial tower, he's met by the examiner. People in the crowd can't help but murmur and whisper about Siwoo. Then, a big guy joins the scene, clearly not vibing with all the commotion. This big guy is said to be the Team 2 leader, and when the examiner takes note of his presence, he rattles out all the details to him. He mentions that 2 people have just cleared the gate, but what's concerning is that one of them wasn't on the entry list. The big guy scans Siwoo, and the first thing that stands out is how scratchless he is. It doesn't make sense given how scrawny Siwoo looks. There's no way he could have gotten away that easily. His curiosity is piqued, so he shoves the examiner aside and decides to interrogate Siwoo personally. He starts off by asking who the hell Siwoo is and why his name isn't listed in the logs. To this, Siwoo casually replies that he didn't go in through the entrance. But the big guy isn't buying it. He argues that if someone enters through the gate, they have to come out the same way. So how in the world did Siwoo exit without ever entering? Siwoo, however, remains completely nonchalant, refusing to take this oversized jackass seriously. And this attitude is really starting to get under the big guy's skin. Annoyed, he jabs a finger over Siwoo's head and straight up calls him a dimwit. Convinced that Siwoo must have some sort of camouflage skill that let him sneak through undetected, the big guy issues a direct threat. He makes it clear that if Siwoo doesn't spill the truth, he's as good as dead. But Siwoo keeps that same deadpan expression, which only serves to piss off this loudmouth even more, making him more aggressive and abusive with his words. Unfortunately for him, Siwoo doesn't have the patience to listen to some dude yap in his face, especially when said dude's breath smells like literal shit. So without hesitation, he orders this big pile of garbage to shut his damn mouth. Now this shithead is clearly itching for a fight, and Siwoo is more than ready to give him one. To further piss him off, Siwoo throws another jab, roasting him for his horrendous breath. And that does it. The big guy takes the bait, balls up his fat fists, and swings at Siwoo. But Siwoo remains unfazed. Then, the inevitable happens. And it all unfolds right in front of Guildmaster Sejun. Not long after, all the jackasses who dared to mess with Siwoo are laid out on the ground. The entire staff is in a frenzy. The guy they had reported for causing a disturbance not only fought the security team, but also disappeared right after. Guildmaster Sejun immediately orders his staff to pull up the CCTV footage. When they do, the recording shows the big guy and his goons charging at Siwoo. But in the very next second, Siwoo moves so fast that the camera completely fails to capture him. Meanwhile, all 3 of those idiots are knocked out cold. One of the staff members reports that Siwoo actually took down 5 hunters before disappearing. Since no one saw him leave, the only logical explanation the staff can come up with is that he must have used stealth abilities. But Sejun disagrees. As far as he can tell, Siwoo didn't use any gimmicks. The dude just moved insanely fast. Internally, Sejun is 1000% sure that this is Siwoo, his brother. And from what he's seeing, he hasn't changed at all from 10 years ago. He then turns to his staff and issues a direct order. They are to mobilize everyone in the Empire Guild to locate that guy immediately. However, he strictly prohibits them from engaging in any kind of confrontation with this mysterious person. All they need to do is politely introduce themselves and bring him to the office. Sejun wants to meet him personally. As the staff rush to carry out his orders, Sejun still can't wrap his head around where Siwoo has been all this time, only to suddenly show up now. The way he vanished and reappeared is suspicious. There has to be a solid reason behind it. He's sure that if Siwoo had been in Korea all these years, he would have come to Empire Guild multiple times. So now, more than anything, Sejun is curious to learn exactly where he's been. He then shifts his attention to the girl who exited the tutorial tower with Siwoo. But the poor girl quickly waves it off, claiming that she has no connection with him whatsoever, other than the fact that they just happened to exit together. Sejun believes her. In fact, he's genuinely impressed that she cleared the tower faster than expected. This only means one thing: she must have gained some pretty decent skills. Hearing this, the girl grows flustered and modestly admits that she managed to get an A-rank skill. Well, that's no small achievement, and Sejun is already considering recruiting her into the Empire Guild in advance. So he assures her that the contract terms will be tailored to her liking. All he hopes is that she'll be happy to sign up with them. And of course, the girl couldn't be happier about this opportunity. Without hesitation, she accepts it. Just then, an arrogant bastard steps into the scene. And of course, the first thing he does is throw shade at the Empire Guild's reputation. Sejun immediately recognizes the loudmouth and warns him to watch his tongue. This bastard is none other than Hunter Ryu Jiwon, an S-rank hunter and the guild master of Gyumgang Guild. And standing beside him is Choi Sungil, another S-rank hunter who manages White Lion Guild. It looks like these two have also caught wind of the unregistered awakened who cleared the tower. Ryu Jiwon is surprised to see that the entire security team got their asses handed to them by just one person. Judging by the pathetic state of these guards, Ryu is certain that the guy must be packing some serious power. Choi Sungil shares the same sentiments, and this is exactly why he wants to locate the mysterious awakened as soon as possible. If this guy has awakened a high-grade skill, then he's likely to become a top-tier talent in the future. And neither of these guild masters plans on letting him slip away. They both want him for themselves. Ryu Jiwon decides to turn it into a challenge. Whoever finds that mysterious awakened first gets to claim him. There are no rules about what kind of shady tactics they can use. Whoever gets to him first, keeps him. Choi Sungil is totally on board with this plan. Since they'll be searching for that mysterious awakened on their own, neither of them has time to waste. Without further delay, they set off to find the guy. And whoever finds him first has to inform the others. With that, Ryu Jiwon heads off, but not without throwing a jab, claiming he'll be the one to find the awakened, so there's no need for the others to even bother struggling. But Sejin isn't so sure he's going to let that happen. Anyway, Ryu Jiwon walks away and orders his assistant, Jinsik, to gather all the C and D rankers from Gumsang's Team A and deploy them for the search. But Jinsik seems unsure who exactly they're looking for. In response, Ryu Jiwon casually drops the bomb, it's Sejun's brother. Meanwhile, Siwoo is in his favorite restaurant, munching down on fried chicken. Frey is absolutely boggled. Out of all the things Siwoo could be doing after returning to Earth 100 years later, he chooses to devour some fried birds. After his chicken spree, he starts wandering the streets, which once again piques Frey's curiosity. He can't help but ask where Siwoo's headed. Siwoo doesn't bother explaining, he figures it's obvious. Of course he's going home. When he finally arrives, stepping into his humble home, nostalgia hits him hard. He remembers rushing inside at dinner time, his mother preparing a meal while his father reads the newspaper. But all those moments are lost in the past. Now his home is nothing more than a rundown shell, empty and abandoned. He still can't remember his parents' faces. They say forgetting is a gift from God, but for him, it was a curse. He spent 100 years in the demon realm, an endless bloodbath on a strange, brutal planet. The dulling of human senses, the stopping of time, the weathering of the self. For what felt like an eternity, the curse of oblivion threatened to erase him. So he desperately clung to his memories, his younger siblings, his disciples. Memories that refused to become mere reminiscence. Instead, they turned into obsession, a lingering attachment. But that was okay. Thanks to that, he survived for 100 years. Even Frey takes note of how this place feels like a ghost town, colder than the demon realm itself. Siwoo only came here to reminisce. Now that he's seen everything, it's time to move on. He decides to look for the neighborhood kids he used to hang out with. But first on the list is his brother Sejin he wants to meet. But his plan to reconnect with old friends hits a snag when a gang of thugs, fully armed, surrounds him from all directions. The bastard with red hair seems to be leading the gang. He introduces himself as Byeon Hakum, a C-rank hunter from the Vajra Guild. Siwoo remains calm and completely unbothered by the status of these lowlives. He's not in the mood for a skirmish either. Hakum feels mocked and reminds him again of his guild's name. But once again, my guy stays nonchalant because he does not give a single fuck. They keep exchanging jabs, with Siwoo effortlessly countering each one with an even sharper retort. This just gets under Hakum's skin, and his patience continues to wear thin. Fully aggravated, he finally decides to teach Siwoo the lesson he deserves. The next moment Hakum throws a punch, a devastating blow that sends Siwoo crashing backward, slamming into the wall behind him. Hakum and his lackeys feel thoroughly satisfied, thinking they finally shut Siwoo up. But my guy is literally the calmest person ever, just lying there like a cool cucumber in a refrigerator. The fools assume he must have fainted from that single blow since he's not getting back up. Then, a system window flashes before Siwoo's eyes, explaining the ability Hakum just used. Apparently, it's a skill called Lightning Flash, a C-grade skill that grants instantaneous acceleration, making your body's speed more than double. You can move way faster, as long as your body can handle the friction. The skill isn't bad at all, so Siwoo casually asks Frey if he wants to eat it. Since this is the first skill Frey is about to consume after returning to Earth, he doesn't mind giving it a try. So my guy simply stands back up on his feet. Then without warning, he dashes toward Hakum and delivers a devastating slap, so powerful that it literally sends Hakum slamming into the ground hard enough to shatter it. The goons, who were cackling like hyenas just moments ago, now stand in absolute terror. Siwoo then extends his hand, giving Frey the opportunity to devour the skill from this bastard. Soon enough, a dark magic circle forms beneath their feet. Within seconds, the skill extraction is complete. While it feels good to finally chomp down on a skill after so long, Frey can't deny the fact that it tastes way worse than the chicken they had earlier. Meanwhile, Hakum, now with his pride in shambles, calls for his minions to attack Siwoo all at once. Like a bunch of reckless idiots, they charge at him, actually believing they stand a chance. Siwoo just tells Frey to put their newly acquired skill to use. The moment Frey complies, my guy explodes into motion, dashing with godlike speed and taking down every last one of these fools, like they're nothing more than mosquitoes. One of the bastards dashes towards Siwoo, attempting to strike him with a skill. But Siwoo easily renders the bastard's attack futile by smashing his knee into the guy's gut, causing him to cough up blood. The bastard was using a vital point strike, a technique that automatically targets an opponent's weak spots. Since this bastard clearly can't make proper use of the skill, Siwoo decides to borrow it for himself. But before things escalate into everyone's demise, Sejun arrives on the scene. The moment Siwoo looks back at Sejun, he notices the reflection of his brother in his eyes, and the once heated battlefield transforms into a sweet reunion of two brothers. Now, to understand what happened, let's rewind 20 years to when the gates first appeared on Earth. It goes without saying that these gates unleashed chaos and destruction, bringing monsters into the world. This was also when the first generation of awakened individuals emerged, their powers awakening as the gates appeared. There were no police, no laws to handle the situation. It was an era of barbarism, where everyone was inexperienced. In this chaotic world, Siwoo and his little brother Sejun, who lost their parents early, had to survive by any means necessary. Siwoo was the first generation awakened. He dropped out of school to become a hunter and raise his helpless little brother, who was still just an infant at the time. And so Siwoo, the caring brother that he was, took care of Sejun during those dark times. In the present, Siwoo follows his brother to their new home, where everything looks lavish. Sejun is totally smitten by the place and wonders if his brother took out a loan or earned everything on his own. But Siwoo claims that the money came from skills he learned from his older brother. Since it's a house they're both supposed to live in, there's also a room for Siwoo. Internally, Siwoo can't believe the person in front of him is his same brother who disappeared nearly 10 years ago. Siwoo keeps talking non-stop, feeling happy that he'll be able to raise his little brother again. He can see how much his little brother has worked hard, and that makes him feel incredibly grateful. Seeing Siwoo jabber on so much, Sejun has no doubt this is indeed his real brother. Sejun then brings up how he's been searching so hard for his older brother. He wants to know everything. Where did he go? Why did he go? And why did he choose this time to show up after all this time? Well, Siwoo has a lot to say. 100 years worth of adventures. But that's a story that can only be told if the two of them sit down for a heart-to-heart. So later, we see them sitting together as Siwoo explains everything that happened. In summary, 10 years ago, after Siwoo defeated the fourth Demon Lord, he was transported to another dimension by an artifact the Demon Lord had. In this other world, he met Predator, a being who could extract other people's skills. For 100 years he grew with that ability, seeking out dragons with dimensional magic. Once he defeated the Dragon King and obtained the dimensional orb that Dragon carried, he was finally able to return home. And his friend Predator, who is also known as Frey, crossed over to Earth with him and is now inside his body. This revelation about Frey living inside Siwoo's body creeps the hell out of Sejun. It only gets worse when Siwoo casually reveals that Frey is basically a parasite living in his gut. Siwoo admits that this whole lore dump probably sounds like absolute nonsense, but he promises his younger brother that he's not tweaking anything. Well, it goes without saying that Sejun trusts his brother. Given how much the world has drastically changed over the past 2 decades, he's not even surprised by this story, no matter how absurd it sounds. Right now, he's just glad his brother is back. Now that Siwoo has come clean about himself, he wants his little brother to do the same, fill him in on everything he missed over the past 10 years. He especially wants to know what the hell happened in this country that allowed a guy like Choi Dae-soo to become president. Since Siwoo disappeared, Choi Dae-soo blatantly took credit for the defeat of the fourth Demon King. With the title of the greatest hunter of the first generation and his fabricated reputation, he managed to ascend to the presidency. Now he keeps making policies that work against Empire Guild. But now that Siwoo is back, Sejun is concerned about what that zesty-ass shithead might try to do to his brother. But Siwoo is not worried at all. In fact, he finds it downright laughable that someone as incompetent as Choi Dae-soo managed to fool everyone with his fake SS rank title. Speaking of Choi, Siwoo suddenly remembers the guys who attacked him at their house earlier. The leader of that gang claimed to be from the Gumgang Guild, so Siwoo wants to know if they're Choi Dae-soo's lackeys. To that, his younger brother responds with a firm no, because the guild Choi Dae-soo runs is called Infinite. There are 7 representative guilds in South Korea, collectively known as the Heptagram. The guild Sejun runs, Empire, is one of them. The others are Infinite, Vajra, White Lion, Fighting Warrior, Azure Flower, and Frozen Soul. Among them, Vajra belongs to a second-generation hunter, Ryu Ji-hwan. Just the name of this bastard is enough to set Sejun's blood boiling. To think that snake is after his senior brother, who just returned home after 10 years. Siwoo then asks his brother about the disciples, the ones who always stood by his side. To that, Sejun explains that they've been living apart for a while, so they haven't connected with each other recently. Xiaolong went back home, and Kang Youhua is under Choi Dae-soo's control. Well, Siwoo wasn't expecting to hear that, but he's hoping Minjun is still around. But contrary to what he thought, his junior brother drops the grim news that Minjun was killed, which absolutely stuns our boy. He doesn't waste any time and interrogates his brother about who killed him. Sejun explains that Minjun's body disappeared, so they couldn't figure out who the culprit was. The only ones who could kill a hunter are other hunters or unregistered awakened individuals. At that time, HMCS even participated in the investigation, but there was no progress. Siwoo starts feeling dazed as he hears one brutal truth bomb after another. He then asks what's the deal with HMCS, to which his brother explains that HMCS is essentially the Hunter Special Investigation Unit, an international agency that operates at the front lines of hunter-related crime. HMCS has the authority to investigate and arrest all awakened criminals, so they're basically like the Hunter Police. Siwoo seems quite intrigued by this new faction, so he curiously asks his brother if he has any ties to the agency. Sejun quickly catches on to what his senior brother is implying, and can tell that he wants to join HMCS. If it's an investigation you want to do, then Sejun is willing to lend his own guild's information team, as they don't have to involve themselves with HMCS. But Siwoo has other plans, beyond just gathering information. His brother once again reminds him that those guys handle cases like murder, so going there is not the best option for him right now. He wants his brother to rest first, and once he's fully recovered, he can start thinking about what to do next. This is when Siwoo reminds his junior that he spent 100 years fighting in that other world, so he's done all the shady stuff you can think of. He doesn't believe he lacks any experience in any field. Well, it looks like Sejun has run out of arguments, so he has no choice but to concede to his senior brother's demands. Eventually, he decides to hook his brother up with a guy named Yi Yeji from Frozen Soul, who is a manager in that hunter agency. Siwoo is happy to hear this and is looking forward to it. Sejun takes note of how Siwoo's face is the same, but the atmosphere around him has changed. This makes Sejun curious about what could have happened in that old world to cause him to change so drastically. Meanwhile, our boy is busy digging about HMCS, and this is when he is hit by a twist. The team leader of HMCS's Gangbuk district team is Hwang Jonggu, a 1.5th generation hunter. And as it turns out, Siwoo knows this guy like the back of his hand. 2 days later, we find ourselves at the HMCS headquarters in Gangbuk district. Inside, a ponytailed man is throwing a tantrum. He seems irritated that once again, someone from higher up has sent a rookie to join his team. And since he's the team leader, it naturally annoys him to have yet another rookie under his command. This guy, as you might have already guessed, is Jonggu. He reminisces about the old days when battlefields were unpredictable, and strength was all that mattered. Back then, hunters wrote wills before heading into missions, fully aware they might not return. He also recalls how, about 10 years ago, he almost died in a raid. It happened because he was still a rookie, and the wound he suffered was fatal. Had he died, the party would have lost its biggest powerhouse. But it was a single healer with incredible abilities who saved him. And, well, we all know who that healer was. That very healer has just made his grand entrance into the office. Siwoo calls out to his old friend, addressing him by his previous name Byung-gu, and immediately questions why the hell he changed it. To jog Byung-gu's memory, he reminds him that he's the very guy with those insane healing abilities who saved his life back then. It doesn't take long for Byung-gu to recognize him, and when he does, he's absolutely floored. Seeing Hunterman Siwoo standing before him, gracing their office with his presence, is the last thing he expected. Later we see Byung-gu formally introducing Siwoo as a new recruit for the Gangbuk team. While Byung-gu is letting his staff know that they better help Siwoo with anything he needs, his sudden shift in attitude doesn't go unnoticed. One of the female staff members looks visibly disappointed. Just a moment ago, their supposedly great and strict team leader was complaining about a new recruit, and now he's acting like a total pushover. But the guy standing beside her quietly tells her to keep her mouth shut. Judging by the team leader's reaction, it's clear that this newcomer is no ordinary rookie. Byung-gu, meanwhile, turns to the female staff member Sunga, and, in his usual arrogant tone, commands her to follow him to the concrete room for a quick briefing. Seeing the ridiculous amount of protocol their team leader is giving to this guy, the other staff members begin to suspect that maybe this new recruit is a 3-star. Later, we find ourselves in the office, where, as expected, the team leader is absolutely swooning over Siwoo, frantically making coffee and doing everything possible to max out his hospitality. Let's not forget about Kim Sunga, who's here to brief our boy. She's the Gangbuk team's data manager. Siwoo finally speaks up, requesting records of all hunters who were killed over the past 20 years. He wants her to summarize the data and pass it over to him. His extravagant demand leaves Seonga stunned. 20 years worth of data is an enormous amount, and they'd have to submit a report to the Hunter Association just to get access to it. But the team leader, clearly irritated by her hesitation, tells her to just do what she's told. He further reassures Siwoo that the data manager will handle it quickly and efficiently, so there's nothing to worry about. Seonga then asks if he's only referring to humans, to which he replies that cases officially recognized as murders by HMCS will do. He also wants a list of hunter-killers who are still at large. As far as Siwoo is concerned, killing an awakened is nearly impossible unless the attacker is also an awakened of equal strength. And if someone managed to kill a top-tier hunter like Minjun, the culprit is likely a professional. Even if they had already been caught or killed, if they were an awakened, there should be a record of them somewhere. For now, tracking them down takes priority. Sunga has found the information, but is not sure how she should share it. Siwoo simply tells her to just send it to his phone for now. Suddenly, someone calls out to the team leader for a private chat. The guy reports that they've received a request for support from the police. A full-blown war has broken out between gangs, and some of them are awakened. The reason the police do not want to interfere is the fact that one of the gangs involved is Cerberus. This annoys the team leader to no end, while Siwoo has no idea what Cerberus even is. That's when Sunga explains that Cerberus isn't just some typical gang. They're arms traffickers and contract killers. There are even allegations that they're involved in hunter trafficking, which makes them far too dangerous for the regular police to handle. This piques Siwoo's curiosity, especially the part about hunter trafficking, because if that's true, it might be linked to the murder of one of his disciples, whose body was never found. So he tells Byunggu to take him along. The team leader, annoyed at being called by his old name, reminds Siwoo that it's Jonggu now. The scene transitions to the battlefield. The Bloodless Reaper gang has just gotten their asses handed to them by Cerberus. Kangho, Cerberus's second-in-command, is feeling pretty smug after wiping them out. Beside him is Jikin, the third-in-command, cracking dark jokes about how easily they cut through their enemies. As these bastards revel in their victory, their moment of celebration is suddenly interrupted. A massive explosion rocks the area. The one who just blew out the building wall to make his entrance is, of course, it's our boy, casually walking into the scene. Judging by how full of himself Kangho is, who is running his mouth non-stop, Siwoo is certain this guy has killed a few hunters to be riding this high horse, which makes him absolutely thrilled. He wants this bastard to show what he's got. By the way, this shitty website seems to have left out a few panels, because judging by their conversation, we clearly missed the part where they actually fought Siwoo. And right now, they're feeling completely hopeless. Because our boy is on a whole different level. Even though he came alone, he's still making them all run for their lives. After multiple failed attempts to take him down, Kangho finally goes all out, activating his skill, Full Body Armor, a B-rank ability that enhances resistance to both magical and physical attacks. As Kangho charges forward, his lackeys follow suit, and it doesn't take long for Siwoo to take them all down. Not only does he defeat them, he also makes sure to steal their skills. It looks like the only reason Siwoo came here was to gauge his own strength. He wanted to check how strong awakened criminals have become these days. And since these guys looked like a lost cause, he figured it was best to cut them off early. That's when the team leader finally arrives, reporting that he has cleared out the entire upper floor of the club. But the poor guy is left completely baffled when he notices all the bodies littering the ground. Siwoo, however, proudly clarifies that he left one guy alive, the hotshot among all the garbage, because they needed at least one person alive for interrogation. The team leader, worried, starts ranting about the legal protocols, how they were supposed to capture them alive. But since those bastards attacked first, he ultimately decides to just frame it as self-defense. The real reason he's so spazzed out is that these guys were ruthless enough that there were already warrants for their immediate execution. But to think that Siwoo dealt with them alone is just absolutely insane. Now, he has no doubts about why Siwoo had the reputation of a mad dog. As Siwoo and the team leader talk, we cut to a coward hiding under some furniture. Wasting no time, he calls his senior and reports that the entire Cerberus gang has just been wiped out of existence. The prominent figure on the other end of the call is Gert, an A-rank hunter, the guild master of Hong Kong's Red Guild. Gert is on the move, immediately wanting to see his brother. The association members apologize and offer their condolences to him. But this man has come here with a single objective and asks for his brother. He learns that Jikin's body is currently placed for a forensics investigation. Hence, they require his assistance to verify the body so that they can move ahead with the procedures. The redhead hunter likes the way this conversation is going. He had previously learned that the one responsible for taking his brother down shared a connection with the HMCS organization. The agents of the associations have yet to verify such claims. Gert, now irritated, questions if he can leave the premises of his own volition. The agents inform him that it won't be allowed, as he's supposed to stay in his designated spot for the time being. If he fails to comply, the association will act under the international law, forcing him to face deportation penalties. In this conversation, Gert is the one getting slammed. Although he's ticked, he now knows they're allowing him temporary freedom because of what happened to his brother. He tasks his assistant, Ryu Yanpeng, to do his dirty deeds for him. This guy is a B-rank hunter, so he's no joke either. As for Gert, he's steaming with fury, engulfed with a desire to avenge his brother. Let's go over to Siwoo, who's casually chilling. He learns from his brother that Minjun's murder additionally followed up by his house getting robbed. The neat part about the mana in this world is that it can easily be traced and analyzed, revealing the hunter's attributes and rank. Hence, the association can easily investigate the suspects responsible for the crime, but in this case, the culprit is a cunning person who left their tracks covered. Minjun was an archaeologist with important valuables of research, and yet not a single item containing his mana was left behind. At this point, Siwoo amuses the possibility of this being a regular burglar instead of some pre-planned assault. But this remark comes across as ridiculous to Sejun. Siwoo backs up his answer, claiming that the stolen items were valuable according to the report. And that means there's a greater chance of leaving a piece of evidence behind. Siwoo deduces that if the culprit really wanted to cover their mana traces, the best way to do that would be to burn the whole place down, which kind of makes sense. This means that Minjun's murder and the robbery were two different crime incidents. Someone just so happened to take advantage of his demise. Siwoo continues that he's found more cases like this in the past, so it's possible. He wants to get things rolling and crack the case, even though it sounds ridiculous to his brother, who thinks that Minjun's possessions may be a lost cause at this point. Siwoo's a bold one and is willing to crack the case. This unwavering confidence cracks a while after. He's pissed as hell in an alleyway, blaming the number of thieves sneaking around, and yet there weren't any valuable leads. Siwoo runs into a dead end, now raging like a maniac. Bro needs a Snickers bar after this. Anyway, Sherlock Holmes happens to get lucky and sneaks up a conversation between two random hooligans. They're talking about the organization locking down on multiple locations and wiping out entire groups without any warrants or reports. The organization has enough influence and authority to look into any matters related to hunters worldwide. So they don't really give a damn if they're straight up sending criminals to hell for it. The organization is so brutal that the worst thing encountering them isn't a prison cell, but your death ground itself. At the same time, skilled hunters aren't exactly the types to join an organization like the HMCS. They much rather associate themselves with a guild that offers a higher package. Still, whoever's causing so much trouble is a threat to these guys. So they amuse themselves by relocating their warehouse just to be safe. Having heard enough, Sherlock Holmes blows his cover and straight up asks about their warehouse. He freaks the ever-living shit out of them. Rabbit Face over here is scared shitless because he recognizes Siwoo as the man responsible for cleaning the criminals up. The boss immediately calls for his men as an emergency call-out. Siwoo, still not bending a knee, inquires about the location of their warehouse, this time with a threatening tone. The boss is willing to sacrifice his stickman for an assistant just to save his life. Luckily, his men get to the scene right on time, making him feel assured of his chances in this battle. The arrogant boss thinks that just because they've outnumbered the HMCS investigator, they've secured their victory, and that they'll easily finish him off now. But our boy is really happy that they went through the trouble of lining themselves up for him, because now, he can freely target and practice his new skill. Activating his skill, Siwoo glows a shimmer of golden light, blinding the men completely. Before long, all of the men are defeated with an electrical strike. He stands over the lackey and asks if he's ready to reveal the location of the warehouse now. Seeing this monstrous investigator take out all their men, he helplessly questions if Siwoo is even human. To this, our boy gleefully responds, declaring himself a lunatic. The scene ends there, with the assistants all captured. Siwoo is able to get ahead thanks to Minjun's secret research journal. It is actually well guarded by a security spell, which adds to the explanation as to why no one else can crack it. The lock requires some of the owner's original mana, and Siwoo isn't really looking for the contents of the book, but rather the mana stored inside. He decides to call Byung-gu, requesting a car and a cleanup squad to take care of the criminals he just swept. As for him, he's got somewhere to be. In the next scene, we come to learn of a neutral zone, kind of a secret market where strange abilities are exchanged. It's a skill-based market called the Black Skyfall. Here, one lady is playing her cards. I suppose she must be practicing witchcraft or some shit because she senses Siwoo's arrival. This woman is the great shaman, Mumyung, just one of the 5 chiefs of the market. Siwoo explores the sector, remarking that not much has changed from a decade ago. Frey mentions that he's quite the popular guy with everyone turning their attention towards him. Our boy doesn't want to beat up people here since it will end up in trouble for him. Intriguingly, Mumyung comes out to meet him. She had been meaning to talk to him. Inside her premises, she comments on how he hasn't changed a day in a decade. She wonders what business he's been up to. After all, he was gone for a lot of time. Siwoo doesn't want to mansplain the entire century-long shit show he went through. Instead, he hands her the secret journal to extract the mana. Mumyung enjoys his straightforward demeanor and reminds him of the procedure. Siwoo already knows it well, as he slices a bit of his palm to draw blood. The logic behind it is linked with mana. Returning mana to its original state is near enough impossible. A comparison can be made with curry. A person can remove ingredients like vegetables from the finished curry, but they can't exactly separate the powder, water, and other ingredients, or return them to their original state. But this kind of impossible situation is overturned by the specialty of this woman, who goes by unnamed. She's a mana hacker, using the powers that defy causality itself. It's a superpower only she possesses. This is also why society views people like her with a cunning eye, afraid that these guys might be criminals in disguise. Anyway, she hacks the mana and enjoys having finished the process. Even Frey thinks she's creepy as hell. She doesn't charge him either. Siwoo is in a hurry and leaves without explaining anything to her. The baddie remarks on him as a mysterious guy, while Frey is seriously creeped out by her. Even Siwoo wonders what's causing Frey to be so upset. It was just a ritual involving a small portion of his blood as a contract. Anyway, Siwoo's next destination is the History Research Institute, where Minjun's murder took place. Arriving inside, he finds no trouble walking around because it belongs to the Empire Guild. Coming here, Siwoo's surprised because he sees lingering phantoms of the ones who are still unaccepting of Minjun's death. Siwoo is interested in checking the memories of what happened during the day of the crime. To achieve that effect, he casts Mana Remembrance, allowing him to experience the emotions of the Mana wielder via a medium. This causes Siwoo to witness an avatar version of events. Unfortunately, he can't see vividly because the skill doesn't show the target's memories and only fixates on their emotions. Now Siwoo is smart enough to know that Minjun was more than a capable hunter. That means whoever was responsible for taking him out must have been extremely skilled to have outclassed him. Siwoo sees his final moments go down and realizes that the culprit is actually one of the VIPs. Minjun shared a deeper connection to another organization, apart from the research institution. Frey wonders if he's doing all right, since even in the demon realm, all our boy cared about was about his disciples and siblings. A century had passed, and yet, the first thing that crossed his mind after arriving on Earth was to check for them. Now, he's just found one of his disciples wastes away into nothingness. Frey knows that it must be hitting him hard on the inside. Siwoo chooses not to focus on the subject, but his companion can sense that his emotions are spiraling up like crazy. It's just that Siwoo doesn't express those emotions on his face, no matter how much pain he's inside. Siwoo emphasizes that he's alright and that it's natural for him to have a breakdown after a century at least. In a surprising turn of events, Ryu pops up from behind. He's been seriously annoyed with how much he had to tail our boy throughout the day. Ryu orders him to come with him for a visit, but Siwoo confidently points out all 6 of his goons hiding in secret. Ryu is impressed by his observation and decides to offer him a choice between 2 options. The first possibility is that he happily complies and goes with the group without causing trouble. The second one, the hard way, is him getting cut up and dragged all the way to their leader. I bet you guys won't accept what he does next. Our boy willingly puts his hands up in the air, surrendering without causing trouble. Ryu tells his men to tie him up, but that's exactly what Siwoo was looking for. He baited one of the men and sliced them open, revealing his true intentions. Now provoked, the rest of the guys try to jump on him Jujutsu Kaisen style. But Gert finally shows his face, declaring that he'll be the one to clean up his target. Siwoo is unfazed and welcomes him to try. Gert starts off with a confirmation, checking if he's truly the man responsible for putting an end to Jaikin of the Cerberus gang, his brother. To that, Siwoo calmly expresses that he didn't really regard the man's name, nor did he care to ask anyone. All he did was simply clean up a bunch of trash. This heartless remark sets Gert off rails as he lunges forth to rip him to shreds. The redhead's confidence gets the better of him, but our boy's not worried at all. He casts instant healing, surprising the A-rank hunter who goes on the extreme offensive from the get-go. Even Gert's underlings are shocked that Siwoo was able to block an A-rank hunter's attacks. Siwoo makes sure to keep the rest of these blockheads out of the fight by casting his lightning flash skill. This instantly takes care of the mob characters since he's more interested in facing someone powerful. They can't believe that he's a powerful healer on top of an incredible combat specialist. The guy was able to analyze Gert's movements to perfection and respond accordingly. The A-rank hunter has never met another hunter with this level of precision, and deems our boy a threat unlike any other. This means Gert's only chance of winning is to go full power. But oh boy, bless this guy's delusional heart. Siwoo wants to remind them that if a crime has been committed, no matter who the culprit is, they must pay for their crimes. The awakened criminals just so happen to have a hunter hunting them down. That's Siwoo's role, and yet these arrogant assholes think that they're the ones being wronged, instead of focusing on the damages they have caused to society as a whole. Gert doesn't like Siwoo's explanation, as it implies that he's free to kill any criminal so long as they commit a crime. He strongly defends his fallen brother, who couldn't possibly comprehend the life they shared. Jaikin ultimately became a criminal to take care of Gert while he was defenseless. It was his way of ensuring both of their survival. Gert wants to repay the investigator for taking a life carelessly without understanding the value of it. He activates his Wolf Fang skill, arguably one of the strongest weapons at his disposal. Just one look at the red mana is enough to tell Siwoo that he isn't supposed to dodge this attack. He requests Frey for the usage of another skill, even though his companion is exhausted after supplying him with so much resources today. Siwoo's hidden class spell that not only identifies the opponent's spell level, but also returns it and cancels out the spell with a magic circle. Gert can't believe what just happened. Not even Ryu can fathom what this seemingly ordinary healer had just done. This guy had just nullified an A-rank hunter's powerful skill. It was unbelievable. At this point, they're the ones being overpowered by one man. Siwoo goes on the offensive and mocks Gert's sentimental approach by making an example of the people who suffered just as much as Jikin and yet didn't lead a life of crime. He shoves a powerful attack against the guildmaster, sending him flying from the impact. That strike of his just now left a bruise on his arm just blocking the blow. Gert doesn't want his men to intervene. He analyzes the situation, knowing that there's no way for Siwoo to consistently cast a neutralization spell. It's inevitable for him to run out of mana, which is why he plans to force our boy into a battle of endurance. Using the same skill from before, Gert concentrates his energy into a focused point and attempts to strike him down. But Siwoo casually dodges the blow without costing any spells of his own. In response, he smartly follows up with a knee to Gert's face before blessing him with a rainfall of punches, mocking the criminal for overextending his skill when his body can't even keep up. In a fit of rage, Gert manages to send Siwoo on the back foot. He then orders 2 of his men to restrain Siwoo while he's defenseless in the air. Ryu is a little irritated about his boss's double-mindedness. First, he didn't want them to intervene, and now he's asking for their help. Anyway, Siwoo is restrained by chains as Gert comes through to deliver one final finishing move to end his life. This time, he wants to make sure there's nothing left of the guy to heal. But this man is too chill. He just doesn't give a damn even with the odds stacked against him. Siwoo congratulates both Gert and Jikin for leading a life of crime before using the lifesteal spell to absorb the very life essence of his target. This winds up in a gruesome experience for his opponent, whose body eats itself away over time. Even Ryu is freaking horrified to see his leader become a zombie corpse. Fun fact, this is the first skill that our boy awakened. It's the real deal, and he makes it very clear to them that he was never an ordinary healer. This spell involves manipulation of the life force itself, enabling one to use life spirit sorcery. With him down, he turns to Ryu, who is flailing like a fish in the pond. Our boy doesn't care for his yapping or pleading and karate chops the crap out of him. He turns his attention to the camera that each investigator is armed with. Siwoo is hoping that the recording went through in one piece, just to make sure that he could catch the evidence of him fighting in self-defense. Byung-gu and the others actually watched his whole fight go down, and their reactions are priceless. Because this idiot actually pressed the live button instead of the record button, allowing nearly 6,000 viewers to watch his broadcast. This ended up a really sticky situation because it jeopardized the reputation of the organization itself. Turns out that the broadcasting feature has been around for 2 years, used for talent recruitment for the most part, but it ended up being a failed project of sorts. From this footage alone, people have come to realize that someone absurdly strong has joined the organization. But the question is, why? Anyway, the more important issue is that this same person killed someone brutally, a guildmaster. And while the investigator didn't commit any specific crimes, it is still something to take into consideration. Finally, Korea's most powerful man, Choi Dae-soo, joins the discussion. Just a few days later, at the Empire Guild's cafeteria, Siwoo was hogging a meal without giving a damn about the video that was released to the public. Even Frey is upset that he's being disturbed during a meal. He's loving the food here and hopes to gobble down often because of how good it is. Anyway, the live broadcast of Gert's defeat is spiraling like crazy on the internet. Thanks to it being a body cam, Siwoo's face was barely visible in the shit show that went down. If Dae-soo, the president, found out about this, he'd suffer major consequences. Then there's the fact that the president has already tried his very best to erase any traces of our boy's existence for the past 10 years. This means he's a clear threat, and the most viable strategy is to lay low. But being the good brother he is, Siwoo doesn't care about the consequences and simply makes a lighthearted joke about the situation. Anyway, Siwoo is encountered by a bunch of names that he met at the tower. Shinjitsu recently joined their guild, awakening as an A-ranker too, all thanks to Siwoo's efforts. But that makes the guildmaster wonder if there is a seminar for the rest of the hunters to gather. His thoughts are confirmed. 2 more hunters, Chu Hamin and Yamato, are introduced, both featuring from different guilds. There's also Taiji from the Imperial Guild, and he's heard a lot of stuff about Siwoo from their guildmaster. Anyway, they're really proud of his achievements for the organization. Siwoo returns the pleasantries, while Hamin becomes suspicious of him right off the bat. He knows that Siwoo is responsible for taking down Gert, who was supposed to be his lifelong rival. It almost feels like nonsense. Hamin doesn't buy it and considers it all bullshit. In response, the guildmaster shows a serious expression, strongly sharing that he's being rude to someone important in the guild's main premises. Hamin chalks it down to the Empire Guild being overly strict instead of correcting himself. Anyway, this turns into an argument, causing the other 2 hunters to draw away from the situation. Hamin refuses to back down and doesn't fear the consequences of being reported to the seniors. He talks highly of his accomplishments, but the detail of him being Xiaolong's disciple strikes out to Siwoo the most. Hamin is ranting on, causing Siwoo to shut him down, stating that he should just find him some other time on his own if he's that desperate. He also mocks his master for failing to train this guy in proper combat. It's a strong insult that strikes a chord with Hamin, who really would have taken forceful methods if they were in a different guild location. Kicking away the chair in frustration, he threatens Siwoo to be careful at night. Bro is out here acting like the boogeyman. Dude needs to stop using high school level threats. Anyway, the guildmaster chooses to forget everything, even assuring his brother that he'll take care of the slimy rat. But Siwoo expresses that it's all good, as this guy is nothing more than the student of his own disciple, so he's okay with him being arrogant. Skipping ahead, we get to see Jianho, the branch director, sharing a talk with the guildmaster Sungil of the White Lion. He wants to issue an apology, beyond the matter of the collaboration. The apology is for the incident caused by one of their members lashing out against the HMCS member. However, the branch director merely refuses such an apology, claiming that someone like him, the leader of a guild, shouldn't apologize for such a behavior. In fact, the branch director has easily figured this guy out, pointing out his intentions of scouting instead of apologizing. Unfortunately, Jianho is unrelenting and refuses to let any guild get their hands on our boy. The guildmaster realizes that he's been figured out, but he finds it strange for someone like Siwoo to offer support in a prison as his current mission. These types of requests are usually handled by larger guilds instead of the organization. Then again, the branch director is optimistic about the future to come and believes they will experience a shift in progress. Sungjil concurs and argues that he would be alright with Hunter Chu Haman, the troublemaker, apologizing to Siwoo on his own. To that, the branch director is fine with it. He thinks it's a personal matter that needs to be addressed by both parties. That marks the end of their meeting. Leaving the building, Sungjil finds himself in a contemplative thought. He doesn't want to just give up on someone of such high talents like that, so he tells his secretary to hit up Haman for a trip, and to also tell him to behave. The secretary asks about the location of their meeting. Sungjil declares Incheon to be the destination. Fast forwarding ahead, everyone now knows that the HMCS organization volunteered for the support request. The only problem being, they have yet to arrive. The chief doesn't get why they're being so annoying, and seems to be fed up with criminals beefing against each other. The current report involves Sherry Volk, a dangerous individual who they underestimated after he got arrested. But slowly after that, he went crazy and lost his senses. Despite mana suppression activated, this guy managed to easily beat the crap out of 5 guys. He maintains a high profile for being a unique criminal, and many agencies have gone through hell just to try and catch him. That man, Sherry Volk, sits in his cell, having received a new instruction. He learns that the organization is already making its move, so if he wants to get out of the cell for good, he's gonna need to cause some trouble inside the prison. As for our protagonist, he's just arrived at the Incheon Awakened prison to fulfill his mission. Haman, on the other hand, is having a temper tantrum after discovering the situation stirred up in the prison. He's seriously annoyed that his guildmaster is obsessed with recruiting and sent him on a stupid mission. Locating a car nearby, Haman rushes to catch up to him the best he can. He's fed up with the mission and wants to ask for overtime pay, just for the inconvenience his guild leader has caused him. Meanwhile, in the transport vehicle, we get to see Siwoo chilling next to the main target. Sherry tries to play provocatively with him and questions if this kid is seriously the new warden. Siwoo bluntly denies such claims. Sherry mocks him for being a special guild member who is overly confident in his skills. The hilarious part is, Siwoo turns to him and goes, "I don't even know who you are," like he's Thanos or something. Sherry is underwhelmed and almost feels offended that this guy's unaware of the situation at hand, or why he's being transported in the first place. Siwoo humiliates him, asking if they decided to transport him because he yaps all the time and never shuts up. At this point, the criminal is at his limit, and explains his lore like he's some evil Sigma male. He's proud of having beaten down 5 criminals, as if to intimidate the guy sitting next to him. Sherry's a little shell-shocked that the guilds managed to send one normal-looking punk after a powerful awakened criminal known for being dangerous and unpredictable. But our boy is just chill-maxing and sips on his coffee, while Sherry tells him that he's utterly fucked. Exactly then, the transport vehicle blows up and gets sent flying. Sherry angrily kicks the door open for having nearly killed him. The old man calculated that he wouldn't just die from a ploy like that, and pokes fun at him for being leashed. That aside, they're curious if he managed to deal with the officer next to him. Sherry confidently claims that he destroyed his temple, which means Siwoo's as good as dead after sipping his last cup of coffee. Sherry's annoyed because his cuffs are taking a while to unlock, but it's only because they're reinforced with mana. Luckily, they managed to break him free. The kid thinks he's grossly exaggerating. Their conversation comes to a full stop as one voice penetrates the scene, demanding them to stay still. This is Haman, and he's surprised they managed to pull off a big move like that. Seeing Siwoo bite the dust at the hands of these low-life criminals, Haman is now even more certain that he was right, that he isn't special, and that his guildmaster is wrong. Nevertheless, he isn't in the mood to let these criminals go. He questions their methods and goals, when suddenly the girl recognizes him as the A-rank hunter Haman from the White Lion Guild. She's surprised to discover they were followed. The old man confirms that no one else is nearby, which means Haman's ready to rumble on his own. He gets into position, once again questioning Sherry's identity. The maniacal criminal claims that there is no use in introduction since he's going to annihilate the hunter anyway. Then he casts the bear wolf skill, taking over a beastly transformation. Haman is shocked to find himself faced against a heteromorphic awakener. Sherry channels all his inner rage, activating Diamond Rampage as another skill to cover his body in incredible mana. Now, he's on a whole other level. Still, the beast finds itself on the defense when Haman starts striking him with incredible speed. At the same time, the hunter is worried because none of his strikes seem to be decisive enough to land a critical blow. The beast considers these punches nothing more than a bunch of massage services. As for the kid, the old man recommends they join in and end the fight because they can't risk reinforcements to arrive. The girl casts a powerful spell, imbuing mana in her hands. This is called the 10-headed viper, and now Haman has to deal with that too. He evades the snake, ridiculing it. But his words turn against him as the snakes restrain his body using a tracking skill. Now that he's stuck in one place, the beast gets its moment to shine, shoving a heavy blow against Haman's body and sending him down. Sherry looks down on the hunter for believing he was special for being privileged and brought up by a powerful kid. In reality, he sees Haman as not even a threat for the alley fights. Haman reminds them that they're talking shit while literally jumping him in a 3-on-1 situation. But Sherry just kicks him down on that too, stating that their group is just smarter than Haman. Anyway, the old man recommends they don't waste any more precious time, urging the beast to prepare his final attack. He looks down on Haman, questioning if he's got any last words for himself. Haman fully realizes that he's totally outclassed and may be facing his demise. That is until one man defies the situation and saves him with his arrival. He's a little annoyed that Haman decided to forfeit the fight just like that. Siwoo is disappointed in his disciples' teachings. Siwoo is struggling more with the mechanics of his body cam instead of worrying about a 3-on-1 fight. The beast can't believe that Siwoo survived, not after he confirmed smashing the human's skull before exiting the vehicle. The old man confirms that he should have died, so this is just strange to witness. Haman roars, warning Siwoo and urging him to wait for support to arrive. However, Siwoo's pissed as hell that he was caught in the midst of a clustered shithole. His peaceful coffee was ruined on top of that. So, to repay them dearly, he's decided to deem them all criminals, worthy of being eliminated here and now. Min Siwoo, known as the Mad Dog and our Demon Lord Slayer, makes it clear to the 3 buffoons that their game is over. He directs his words at Chu Haman from the White Lion Guild, referring to him as Xiaolong's disciple, while emphasizing that Asura is not merely a skill designed for striking. As our hero gathers his power, the heteromorphic hunter, Grey Wolf of Bestia, lunges at him. However, before the werewolf can land a blow, he is pierced by the Asura skill. Chu Haman, watching closely, struggles to believe his eyes as he recognizes it as the very same skill that his master uses. Siwoo knocks the wolf aside and immediately follows up, mocking him by remarking that draining all the blood is necessary for tender meat. The old buffoon retaliates with a thunderwall strike, only to be startled as their opponent effortlessly evades the attack. Our hero acknowledges the old man's ability to double cast using some cursed tool, remarking that at least his life hasn't been entirely wasted. Meanwhile, his predator, which he calls a parasite, finds the skill unfamiliar and curiously wonders if it can be eaten. Siwoo explains that the skill functions much like an expensive one-time use scroll, requiring mana to be channeled into it for activation. Chu Haman, unable to hold back his curiosity, questions our hero about his identity and how he possesses knowledge of his master's skill. Before he can press further, the old man begins chanting dark spells, catching him off guard with a gravity spell and attempting to use him as bargaining leverage. Siwoo, immediately recognizing the old geezer's ploy, scoffs at the attempt, ridiculing him for stooping to mere threats. The old geezer reiterates his demand, insisting that if Siwoo wants Haman to stay alive, he should walk away. He goes on to add that our hero was merely dragged into this situation, and that things can proceed smoothly if he simply leaves without causing trouble. Min Siwoo casually swirls a finger in his ear, dismissing the old man's words by pointing out that he wouldn't be here if he hadn't deliberately accepted such a filthy mission. He further remarks that Haman should have no trouble handling a basic gravity spell like this, even if it doesn't seem that way at the moment. The old geezer questions our hero, pointing out the apparent contradiction and asking whether he and Haman are truly on the same side. Siwoo responds by making it clear that the only ones siding here are them. He then exposes what he already knows, revealing that the old man is a hunter-killer working under the command of a powerful group. This revelation catches the old man off guard, leaving him stunned by how much Siwoo already knows. Without missing a beat, Siwoo continues laying out more facts about him before finally demanding to know who he is working for. The old man makes another attempt to threaten our hero, remarking that even with the knowledge of them being hunter-killers, Siwoo still chose to be here. Fixing him with a deathly stare, Siwoo simply repeats his question. As our hero closes the distance, the old man hastily draws a cursed tool and unleashes a shockwave spell, only to be caught off guard when it is effortlessly nullified. Confused, he wonders if Siwoo used some kind of lightning-based spell to overload the tool. Without hesitation, he jumps backward, trying to widen the gap between them. Predator remarks that the meal now looks even more appetizing. Suddenly, Siwoo's hand begins to glow, revealing that his form has been restored by 40%. Growing even stronger, he taunts the old man, telling him to stop wasting time since, at his age, he can't afford to squander the few days he has left. The old geezer refuses to comply. While acknowledging that Siwoo has uncovered his identity as a hunter-killer, he makes it clear that the organization he serves will remain a mystery. He explains that everyone working for them is bound by an oath of silence. The moment he breaks it and reveals their secrets, he will instantly become a target for immediate execution, ensuring his death either way. Meanwhile, Haman rises to his feet, recovering from the effects of the gravity spell, just as the werewolf regains his senses and coughs up black blood. Without hesitation, our hero briskly moves toward the old man, asking if he is afraid of dying. As he speaks, he begins casting a spell, 3 magic circles appearing around him. Growing anxious, the old man turns to the Grey Wolf of Bestia, urgently demanding that he do something to stop Siwoo. The werewolf snaps at the old geezer, telling him to shut up, before engulfing himself in a purple aura and charging toward our hero, this time vowing to tear him apart. However, before he can cover much distance, he is intercepted by Haman, who remarks that their numbers are finally even. The two exchange heated words, but their argument is abruptly cut short as our hero unleashes his Thousand Winds spell, blasting both the werewolf and the old geezer away. Without wasting a moment, Siwoo dashes toward the old man, seizing him by the neck with an iron grip and demanding to know if he truly understands what death feels like. Tightening his grip around the old geezer's throat, Siwoo demands to know how many times he must drag him to the brink of death before getting an answer. Watching from the side, Haman finds it absurd that our hero keeps pushing these buffoons to the verge of death, only to heal them afterward. The thought crosses his mind that if he were in their position, he would rather die than endure such a fate. He even wonders how it's possible for someone to wield a healing spell so powerful. Siwoo repeats his question, and this time, the wolf pleads with the old man to give in and just answer. Finally giving in to the pressure, the old geezer speaks, revealing that they work for Bestia. As he takes a closer look at our hero, realization dawns on him. Siwoo once received an invitation from them and saw no reason to hesitate before quickly accepting their offer. For those recruited by the organization, secrecy was the